channel. Today I'm going to be doing a review of the E75 Tier 9 German heavy tank. And we'll just start this thing off. This is a very similar looking tank to the Tiger II. As you can see, profile and size, it's about the same, except it has some significant better points. The upper plate is stronger and sloped back more. But the general size is about the same. Hit point wise, you're looking at 1920. You're getting a little bit more than this, but you're not getting as much as the Conqueror. But size-wise, actually the Conqueror is quite big when you look at the comparison-wise. It's a little bit fatter. This thing is heavy, so ram away, 92 tons, engine power 900. It gets around pretty good, actually, accelerates decently. It goes down hills, it can reach 40. Traverse speed is 30. I found the ground resistance to be pretty decent because the tracks are pretty wide, and it doesn't have trouble turning, but what it does have trouble with is its turret traverse speed. It doesn't turn its turret very well. Next, we'll talk about the armor and some of the weaknesses. When you're looking at an E75 from the front, it's got weak spots on the lower plate. The hatch is also significantly weaker than most of the other parts on the front of the tank. If you want to pen it and do full damage, you can hit it here. And alternatively, if you have a high enough heat pen round, you can kind of blitz right through the front of the flat part on the armor on the turret, but you have to have pretty high penetration round to do that. Think a heat round on like a Chinese tank. If you get the front, if you're trying to angle this tank properly, you want to try and angle like this if someone's shooting at the front of your tank, but if they're going to aim for your sides, you pull it back, you kind of jiggle the front around a bit, but optimally, if you give them this, then you can kind of just dance it this way and then dance it that way, and that's kind of what you want to do. From the side, you've got, from what I understand, some spaced armor and stuff along the sides. If you get this sort of angle on E75, shoot here, shoot back into here, you can set the engine on fire, and shots from the front can damage the transmission, the engine and stuff, but it won't set on fire anymore, luckily. So that's nice. And next, we'll take a quick look at the gun. You can use the regular Tiger gun. It's got much better accuracy and better aim time, but you're going to give up a fair bit of penetration and a lot of damage, but you're going to get better rate of fire. And the tank is usable with that gun, so it's not entirely the most horrible thing in the world, but what you want is a 128mm KWK 44 L55. This thing fires every about 13 seconds with rate of fire says 3.82. Your 246 pen is pretty decent for your normal AP rounds, and 311 for the APCR is fantastic. And you got 390 alpha damage across the board with 630 with HE. From my experience, the 0.3 accuracy does not make this thing a very good sniping tank. You'll occasionally hit shots from a long range, but with the current accuracy modifications and stuff, you're not going to be hitting weak spots quite as consistently, but we'll see how that goes. With the aim time of 2.9, that's actually pretty decent, considering that some of the other tanks at this tier have 3.4. I would say this isn't actually too bad. The strong point of this tank is definitely the armor, the angling, and the gun. The mobility is not bad, but you're not going to be moving around like an IS-8 or an IS-7. Those tanks are Russian, and they have special stellanium qualities that this thing just doesn't possess. As far as crew skills go, I've taken 6th Sense and repairs across the board. Snapshot for shooting on stuff with my turret turning, clutch braking for turning the tank better. I can see a little bit further with situation awareness, and safe stowage because sometimes you're going to hit in this area of the tank where the ammo racks are stored, and especially in the turret, in the back end of the turret, you end up getting hit in the ammo racks. So if you can, take that, and it might save you a little bit of pain. I haven't really ever found this tank gets its turret blown off from an ammo rack, but it has been damaged before, so take that into account. As far as modules go, you want to take a vertical stabilizer, and I take vents and I take a rammer just to keep the aiming reticle small, and then rammer obviously to get the reload time down. As far as the amount of rounds I take 20 normal AP rounds and 16 APCR rounds, because sometimes you just need to go through, and sometimes I take HE, sometimes I don't. I'm experimenting with whether I need to or whether I don't, because sometimes you just it's unpredictable sometimes, to say the least, because the HE mechanics in the game are what they are. And that'll about cover this. The next tank down the line is the E100, which is it's a different tank. It doesn't play the same as this. It's got decent armor, but it's a very different tank. So we'll jump into some games, and you can see how this thing performs when it's out there and fighting it out with the tier 10s and tier 9s. Alright, we're jumping back in time to 9.2, hence why there is no markers or anything on the minimap. Now I'm going to move up, and I'm going to be... I was platooning with one of the guys I like playing with, North Australian. He's a good guy. And we're moving up, and I'm going to try and back up our E100 in this game. And for one, you can see the E75 isn't super fast. I'm a little bit quicker than a Yag Tiger. Maybe not even quicker than a Yag Tiger. This game was more at the early stages of when I had the E75. This actually might be without the top engine, because I did grind through the engine. I ground through some of the modules on this tank. Now we're going to get up here, and this E100 is angled pretty strongly, so I'm going to pull around, and we're just going to wait, because the pain will come. You really got to try and be not too much in a rush. You got to take your time, you got to be patient, because if I would have rushed around there, I would have run into that VKB, and those things are dangerous. So I give him a shot in his lower plate. Doesn't go through, because his lower plate's not a weak spot. And I'm going to pull him again, because I saw that he fired. I didn't have anything else to shoot at, so I just decided to shoot. I can't say that the VKB is the most wonderful thing to shoot at from the front. This E100 was doing a good job angling his tank quite well. Where you can pen is the outside the drive wheel, though. And if you're going to shoot at the front of a VKB, just shoot at its hatch if you can. It's the best thing to try and shoot at. Now he's going to turn, and now this Patton's sticking his face out, so I take a shot at him. And the E100 is going to turn again. And these guys are pounding a lot of shots in this E100. I'm going to try and go over here and help him out. And again, making a huge mistake. I didn't actually know at this point where the VKB's weak spots were, and that's why I was shooting in the lower plate, because I thought that that's where I could pin him, but it's not. So never shoot one there, and eventually that tank's going to get removed because it's not real anyway. So let's pull forward. I haven't taken any damage yet, which has been nice. Managed to hit him again on the outside drive wheel. Take out that VKB. Now this E100 was soaking up lots of damage. He would have been able to pass some of these missions like a champ that are currently out right now, the ones that are wrecking all your games. So the front of the E50's turret is a pretty easy place to pen. You were able to punch through it pretty easy with 245 pen. I'm just squeaking around the corner. And bounce a shot from that E50. And really poke his face out again. Unfortunately for us, we had like 2 heavy tanks on the other side of the map in the Delta Village, which is a massive mistake for our team. And I popped one into the rooftop weak spot on the IS-3, which turned out pretty good. And then our E100 puts a really nice heavy shot into that E50, which really was great. And then I take my first shot of the game, and where did it go through? Right through my hatch. Guy managed to hit it. And with the German tanks, you're able to do that. So bounce another shot from that Patton. And I'm just gonna pull out a little bit so you can see some of the bounces that happen. And I'm gonna put a shot in that E50 and manage to take him down. but unfortunately our E100's, he's taking damage, and I wish he would have pulled back so I could take damage for him. So I'm going to actually pull in front of him to see if I can save him, but instead he gets hit by the M48, who was probably shooting heat rounds at him at this point. And the team was wilting and falling apart. We didn't really have much in any way of help. It was basically just us two holding this entire corner against like a whole swath of enemy tanks. So that IS-3 rolls around, doesn't do any damage. I'm going to reload. And I will kill the IS-3 if I can. I'm just waiting. I'm trying to angle and not cover or show too much of the tank. So the T-28 rolls around, so I put a shot into him, and I'm trying to not show too much. Bounce a shot from something. And now I don't have too much to shoot at, so I got a good shot into that M48, who's the most dangerous tank on the team that's shooting at me right now. And there's not too much I can do about this situation. It's not great. And then I managed to take a shot from something in front of me. So I put a shot into the T-28, and I'm still trying to angle. And it's hard to angle against both of them. I'm bouncing on the IS-3 at least, because that's 400 damage I don't need to take. And I know that machine gun port on the M48's a weak spot, so I angle to take him out. But now they're both just going to try and rush me, and I get tracked. And IS-3 still can't pin my side, which is actually quite funny. But the vultures are coming. The whole entire team is coming to pound me now. So I put a shot into the STB, and I'm going to try and get my armor turned around. But I get tracked again, and I'm maybe only going to get like 1 or 2 more shots off. I get a ram on the Batchat, which is quite nice, but then I die. So in this kind of situation, there wasn't too much I could do. I ended up doing like more than twice as much as the next best guy in my team, almost 3 times as much damage as the E100 on our team, doing 5,460 or 78 damage, 3 kills, and ended up getting the high caliber in this game. But there was just a tremendous amount of armor blocked as well. It was well over 5,000. So the E75 has the ability, if they don't get too close, it's hard to hit that hatch from fairly far away, especially if you're moving around, or you have an E100 that's helping you out, taking a whole bunch of shots for you. So that is basically what you want to try and do. But the biggest mistakes I made in this game were shooting at the lower plate on the VKB. But some of the times I didn't really have anything else to shoot at, except for maybe the drive wheels. But sometimes I didn't have that shot, so that's the biggest mistake I made in this game. Other than that, the team just wilted, and that happens, and you can't win every game. And sometimes this is how your games end, and you're left a burning hulk because your team noobed out. Like, if you look at the list of tanks that noobed out, we have AMX-50B that did 404 and M103 that did 393. So if those tanks in your team are only getting 1 shot in before they're dying, then odds are you're going to die too. So we'll jump into another game where hopefully the E75 can come out on top. Now this one is actually from from today, which is like 2015 February, and then right at the tail end of the 9.5 patch. And so you've got like tank names and last spotted locations and stuff. Now in the last video when I took those shots at the VKB, that was when that tank was still fairly new to the game. Not a lot of people knew where the weak spots were, and I didn't know where they were. So that was definitely the biggest, hugest mistake I made. And what you'll see on this map and on our team is, see where our M103 is? This is a 46% win rate player, and this is why. This is because he has no idea where he goes, and this is even after thousands of games. So if you want to be a better player, watch where the better players go. If you see that all the heavy tanks end up going to certain spots on the map, it's usually because that's where you need to take your tank. Not to the other flank. You know that T-32, he shouldn't be where he is. So E75, And before I loaded into the game, I could see on the tank list, you want to pay attention to how many artillery are on the map, because you have to play extremely differently when the enemy team has 3 artilleries that can absolutely pound you into the dirt. And one of the places on this map where you are artillery safe with this, especially with the E75, it's pretty big, is right here. So get crunched up beside these buildings. So I got the side of that IS-3, so I pounded a shot into him. And that T-54, he knew what he was doing. He knocked that building down, and he was going to camp it up in that spot right there. So I knew what he was doing. So I decided to get back as far as I could and not show him hardly anything of my tank. And what the hell was that? That was a pullout into the atmosphere. Now I know that T-54 is back there, and odds are he can see me before I can see him, because he's looking through stuff. And I take a shot from him, and bounced off something. And behind me, I had an IS. Other than that, I had an IS-3 and another IS-3, but they were both not too bright, and they were sitting out in this dead area here. You don't want to ever sit there, because you just die. So I take another shot from the T-54, and he tracks me, but I don't really care at this point. He can shoot at my tracks all day long. So I pull forward a little bit, and part of him is behind a wall. So I put a shot through there, and then there's this IS-3 here. I don't know what he thought he was achieving, but it wasn't very good. And the IS-3, I don't know how many times he needs to get shot before he realizes that that's a bad position to be in. And the T-54 kills the stupid IS-3, unfortunately. It would have been nice to have him around near the end of the game, but instead he just decided to drive out and get shot in the side over and over again by the T-54. So I bounce a shot from this M103, and this guy doesn't have too much to shoot at, so I'm just going to stay here fairly angled, and he shoots at the front of the turret. And I managed to shoot him in the track and the drive wheel, but he didn't take any damage, unfortunately. And I'm going to bounce a shot from their E75. Put another shot into the M103 in his lower plate. Bounce another shot from the M103. I'm going to angle. Take no damage. And then that guy's going to go down. And now I'm going to aim at this guy's lower plate on me. And no damage. So even with 245 pen, slightly angled E75, I must have rolled pretty low, because normally those shots would go in. So I've got a shot at this T-54, and he's back on the route around the corner, so I'll put a shot into him any day of the week. And this IS was doing okay. He was in over his head, being a tier 7 tank in this game, but he can wallop out 400 damage. Now the T-54 is poking around the corner again, so I put another shot into him. And so the E75 comes around, and I can see him aiming that way, so I tilt the front of my tank over to the left and put some damage into him. I drive around, put one into his lower plate, and I got the side and back of a T-54. I don't know if I'm going to have another shot at him or not. So the E75, he's down pretty low on hit points now. Our artillery hit him pretty good. And I'm proxy spotting him. And the game is really close at this point. We're actually losing. And then the T-54 comes around on me, and he puts a shot into the IS for whatever reason, and I put a shot into him and I take him out. And then I'm bouncing shots from the back from an LTTB, and he's putting shots into our IS. E75 comes around, puts a shot into the IS instead of putting a shot into me. And I take my first damage of the game, actually, from the LTTB. And he's tracking me, which is kind of annoying, but the artillery still can't really hit me from where I'm at, so I'm fairly safe. Now he's tracked my other track. And the artillery is doing a little bit of helping me there. Managed to get a shot over into the LTTB, and he's still not, he's being persistent. He wants to keep shooting at me. E75 tries to come around, but I'm using the hull of the IS. He doesn't really have too much to shoot at, so I'm going to put a shot into him. Rolled pretty averagely, but not quite high enough to kill the LTTP. And things were looking a lot better now. I did get a fair bit of artillery support on those guys that were trying to attack me. They were stopping the E75 and the M103 from camping. Now, it was kind of a cleanup from this point on out. I did run through almost all of my rounds in my AP rounds. I fired 15 rounds up to this point. And I was kind of hoping that the artillery were down in this corner like they usually are, but it didn't turn out that they actually were down here. But I will find one tank, and I didn't expect to find this tank. But the T-20, he was actually like hiding down by the ships. I'd never actually seen anyone hide down there before. And I shot, and I don't know where that shot went. That's what happens with the E75 when you don't aim. And from the front, the T-20 is kind of hopeless against this tank. So I just kind of rolled back and forth and then aimed in, slugged him for a bit, and then watch this. Artillery can actually fire in and hit him squarely in the side of the tank, kill steals. Steals my kill in the T-20, because I was going to hit him for another 600 damage, which would have put me about 5,000 for this game. But I actually didn't get to kill him, which was rather unfortunate, because I think I kind of earned it. Because I carried this game right through from the beginning to the end. Ended up doing 4,300 damage, which could have done 4,900 if I would have got the last bit of damage on that T-20. But at the end, it ended still being a high caliber steel wall and a cool headed metal, with 4,400 bounced and yeah, 4,309 as far as damage goes. Now, my synopsis for this tank is it's awesome. It's one of my favorite tanks, and I only have a 58 win rate in it, but it was the first tier 9 tank that I had, and I did drive it when it was partially stock, so I kind of wish I'd just free experience through some of it. But it once it was fully decked out, it's pretty much one of the most enjoyable tanks to drive, hands down, in the game. It bounces shots that sometimes you think are going to go in, but they just don't. And the gun is good, the armor's great, especially if you can angle it sufficiently. There isn't really too much to dislike about the E75, other than it's not super fast, and if you can get the side of it, its armor doesn't work quite as good. But other than that, the E75 is just great. So I fully encourage everyone to go down the line and get through the Tiger 2. I kept my Tiger 2 because I like it, and get to the E75. It's a fantastic tank. As far as how does it stack up against the ST1, which I think is the other heavy tank of tier 9, it's pretty good compared to the ST1. I think the ST1 is maybe armor-wise a little bit more trolly, especially from the side. Sometimes you get stuff in the side from that tank that is just amazing. It's the stuff that doesn't go in on it. But the E75 can get those kind of things as well going on for it. But just in general, yeah, E75 is great. Go down the line, get the E75, you won't regret it. And that's going to conclude this review. Thanks for watching, and I will see you guys again in the next review.